Welcome back to Wisdom Work with Christa and Christy, where we have real, honest conversations about self-growth, empowerment, and living in alignment with who you truly are. Hi, Chris.
Hello. How are you,
Great to be
Krista?
back with you.
So good to be back with you and all of our listeners. I am very happy to continue our conversation on this episode.
Me too. Today, we're going to be diving into talking about if you've ever felt completely dismissed or had your feelings hurt. I think a lot of our listeners can identify with a time or two in their lives when this has happened. And like your emotions didn't matter or were taken seriously. Maybe somebody brushed off your experience or called you too sensitive or made you question if you were overreacting about a certain situation. I feel like we've all been there at some point. And it can be frustrating and even painful. So, in today's episode, we're going to be diving into how to stay in your power, validate your own experiences, even when others don't. We'll talk about why emotional validation is so important and how to recognize when you're dismissing yourself and practical ways to honor your feelings without needing the external approval that we always talk about here.
Oh, yes.
So, because at the end of the day, your emotions are real and your experiences are valid and you deserve to be heard, even if you're the only person listening. So, let's get into it.
Yes, let's get into it.
So, Chris, tell me anything that came to mind when you were listening to that and in your own life that you feel like maybe you were experiencing, feeling dismissed or not feeling validated when you were going through something tough and it was kind of just brushed off.
Yes. I mean, I've had that happen many times in my life. And I think because I'm at heart just a sensitive soul, I always have been. And I'm grateful to have come to a point in my life now where if someone were to tell me that I'm too sensitive or that I'm sensitive in general, I don't take that as an insult. I take that as a compliment,
Nice.
because it is my superpower. It's one of my superpowers is being sensitive enough, to not have my guard up against everything. Sometimes it especially as a child, I think I was more easily hurt because I was so sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And that was tough to navigate. Now, as an adult, I think I've learned how to have my sensitivity in a mature way where I'm open and I know that I can get hurt, but I also know how to protect myself and take care of myself. Right. But when you're younger, I feel like that was really tricky for me as a kid was just, you would say something and it wouldn't land well, or someone would give you negative feedback, or someone would, as you were saying, completely dismiss your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt awful. I mean, I
Yeah.
can remember so many moments as a kid where it felt like a gut punch, whether
Mm-hmm.
it be from friends, from a teacher, from a family member. I had those experiences time and time again in my life, and I still continue to. But again, the difference is now that I've learned how to better prepare myself for people's reactions to me, and not take offense to that. And I've also learned how to just be more emotionally stable for myself.
Mm.
And I think the most important piece is the validation. I know we've talked about this in past episodes, but the understanding that no one else outside of you can or should do the validating for you. It has to come from within. But we've just learned our whole lives to look outside of ourselves for validation, for praise, for acceptance. And the real work here, I think, as adults is to switch that around and to understand that it's not somebody else's job to validate your feelings, but also you're robbing yourself of your own power by putting it on other people, putting this expectation on other people to show up for you in the way that you feel like you need them to or want them to respond to the things that are important to you in a caring and compassionate way, maybe the way you would for them. I think that is a tricky piece of it too. And that was wrapped up very much so in my sensitivity profile,
Mm-hmm.
you could say, is that I remember being hurt by people and thinking I would never do this to them. So why would they do this to me? Or,
Mhm.
they tell me something important or heavy and I hold space for it. And I'm compassionate and I'm kind and I'm caring. But when I do the same to them, they they don't give me that response. One thing I have learned about many different people is that you sort of have to give them a little grace, in the sense that many people don't have the toolkit or the ability or the awareness, or the emotional maturity to hold space for your
Mhm.
heavy stuff, or to
Mhm.
hold space for the things that you're sensitive to. And that sort of shifted my perception, I think, too, of being seen as, we were seeing in relationships where it's like, I'm there for you, but you're not capable of being there for me. And that's the important piece, is they're not capable. So it
Yeah.
allows me to kind of let people off the hook, I think, but to also remind myself that it was never their job in the first place. And the true validation that I'm seeking, and the acceptance or the love or the compassionate response I was seeking, can actually come from them anyway, in like the most supportive way possible. People can give you that and it is helpful. But the truth is, if you're able to give it to yourself, that is where the true power is. So I'm going to flip it back to you, Krista, because I want to talk about that. Like, how can we step into this understanding of showing up for ourselves first before we're going to look to other people to do it for us? And how can we build that muscle and that strength within ourselves to not need the validation of other people, and to not be so offended when they're not able to be what we need them to be?
Yeah. Wow. Well, so Chris, I feel like we can end the episode now because you just laid out so much wisdom for us. Thank you so much. There
That
was a
was just
lot
personal
in there.
experience.
Yeah, there was so much in there. I loved it all. I wish I took notes. I'll have to go re-listen and take notes
It's
because, oh my
recorded. It's
gosh, yeah.
recorded.
Like trying to be present, but also take notes and learn from you, because the reality is I have learned a lot of this from you. I mean, in earlier conversations years ago, we've talked about this like in earlier seasons on the podcast, where it was like I went and talked to everybody I ever knew. I hired all the therapists, all the healers, all the helpers, and I like went external. And you had a different experience of going internal. And I was like, how do you do that? Like, how do you not get that validation or like that satisfaction of feeling like everybody gets you and like understands it? So that was definitely, I got to that place later than you for sure, but I appreciate you holding that vision for me of what it could be, because it is extremely gratifying now that I can do that for myself. And it's really empowering. And I feel so much better because I feel like I'm not missing anything. Like I have everything I need inside of me to be able to feel the way I need to feel. So if I feel like I had a hard day or I had a hard experience, I'm able to say, yeah, that was really tough, and be able to just be with myself in a way that feels so nurturing, so supportive, so nourishing.
I think we may have just had a frozen moment, but it may have been on my end. I'm sorry. Sorry to cut you
Yeah,
off.
that's okay.
I think it's on my end. So carry on. My bad.
Okay. So I appreciate you always having that example shown to me that we can journal or meditate or like go within our hearts and be able to access different parts of ourselves and be able to hold them like little babies that are crying and say, I got you. It's okay. What do you need? So anyway, that is just a response to all of the wisdom that you just dropped. So thank you for that. And for me, I would say the biggest example that I have to pull from is I had a really hard postpartum experience. We were away from family, living in Seattle. We had, very low, limited amount of people we knew there at all. Like John Paul and I went without knowing anybody except one person who had hired him, and they were great. But it's like, you don't feel the comfort of like having an emergency contact or saying like, hey, I'm reaching my end point, like I need some help or some support. So it was really, really hard for us. And what I kept hearing was like, well, we had like a birth that didn't go the way I wanted it to, and like the whole postpartum experience, I think I wasn't expecting like to actually bring a baby home and to be having to care for a baby. I was like so in the pregnancy research and the birth research. And I was like, oh, nobody's like coming home to make sure I'm doing everything right with me. Like, this is crazy. So for postpartum, it was kind of like we were deer in headlights, and it was tough. So anyway, but what I kept hearing was, well, the baby's healthy, you're healthy. And I was like, yes. And
But
that doesn't like, it's very dismissive of how hard and challenging this time in my life is. So it was like this constant thing of me second guessing, like, oh, I shouldn't feel like down and out because I have a healthy baby. Like a lot of other people don't, or whatever. And it was dismissive in the fact that, like, for me, I knew how much I was doing every day. I knew how hard it was not sleeping and like operating a vehicle and trying to feed myself and my son and all the things that a new mom and dad have to do. But nobody else was saying that. It was like I had to learn that nobody knows the ins and outs of our day. Nobody's living with us every single day and night and learning how many times our son woke up and like how much I had nursed him and all the things. So it would be easy for me to go into a victim mode of saying like, poor me, I wish this was different. And I probably did a lot, which was part of the journey. But what I'm learning now, looking back, in any kind of time where there's a offhanded comment or like a backhanded compliment or whatever it may be, like a dismissive thing, it's like, I love that you said sucker punch, or like that gut wrenching feeling, because that's exactly what I felt too. It was in my stomach. So one of the things I've learned is listen to where that pain or where that sensation is in your body, and like learn to add awareness to it, like loving awareness or compassionate curiosity, and send that to that part of your body. So for me, it would be the stomach. So if somebody talks about, or if somebody said like, oh, well, yeah, at least you had a healthy baby, it would be like, oh, and then I would feel that part of my stomach and be like, it's okay. We know that this is really challenging. They don't, like you said, like you're kind of letting the other people off the hook because they're not with you. They don't know. And their experience, if they're a parent, like their postpartum could have been fine. And they're pulling from that frame of reference as opposed to yours. So it's not like an intentional diss, I hope. I mean, some people could be doing that, but you want to assume positive intent, I think, for other people that they just don't know. And it's really hard for people to, like you said, Chris, hold space for your own experience as well as theirs, which is why I think parenting is so hard, because it's like all of these needs, we're all operating at in real time of like, I have needs. I have emotional needs that need to be validated. My son has emotional needs that have to be validated. My husband has social emotional needs that need to be validated. So a lot of us have to be armed with these tools that we talk about on our podcast to be able to dance in life and not feel like I'm cutting off this loved one because I need to feel my experience first. And then like you're able to we have to learn, I think, to harmonize with life. And so hopefully this conversation can be inspiring to see if and when you're needing some extra support or another tool that can help bring you more confidence to come to your hardships with a little bit more resilience or a little bit more compassionate curiosity to say, I got you. I'm here for you, no matter if I'm the only one that's coming, which it normally is. It's just you because you're the only one that knows the ins and outs of your day. So it's just, I think, so important for us to be able to hold ourselves like we wish we had, whether it be a parent or a friend or a partner. If somebody is responding to you in a way that's not hitting the mark, you be that person. Like what do you wish they would say? You say it to yourself. Like you have that power. And that's where we hold back. We hold on to our power instead of giving it away to somebody else.
Whew, that's a good one. That is a really good one. And I felt that as you were saying it, like that it's so empowering. And I hope that it's landing for everybody that's listening like that, and I'm so glad that you and I have been able to come to that understanding on our own paths, but like also see it for each other, because we don't realize how much power there is in being there for yourself. And we're not taught to do it. We are not taught to. Everything you described about what you used to do is precisely what's been modeled for us for
Yes.
generations and generations. You spew everything that's bothering you, or, you know, all the things somebody's doing wrong to you, or the ways that people aren't showing up for you, or, you know, we spew it onto people around us, and we think that it's going to make us feel better, but it doesn't. And the only thing that will truly make us feel better is to show up for ourselves, instead of like throwing it out there and trying to hope somebody will pick it up and fix it for you. You have to show up for yourself. Also, I heard in what you were saying, it really comes back to the let them theory, right?
Yeah.
Us letting other people off the hook is letting ourselves off the hook too. You know, you can stay stuck in this place of being really mad at people for not being what you wish they would be, or not showing up for you in the ways that you wish they would. Or you could let them not show up for you, let them not have the ability to, and let me take care of it myself. Let me show up for me in the way that I wish that they would. Like, that's totally speaking right back to the let them theory. And I wanted to say too about that postpartum example was a great example, Chris, because whether you've gone through it or not, that exact scenario, I think it's super relatable. That anything in your life, when somebody says like, oh, well, it's just whatever, but it's something that is really hard for you, you're having a hard time getting through it or figuring it out, and then somebody says something that dismissive to you, well, it immediately makes you question yourself, like you said you did, where you're like, oh, I guess I should just be tougher and be able to just like deal with this. But like, that's so unfair to do to yourself. And it's so unfair of somebody else to put it on you too. Like you said, whether their intent is bad or not, they're being a jerk about it, really. And what came to mind for me was the stay-at-home mom. Like, that's what I've experienced that a lot around is, you know, call it what you will, entrepreneur. I've been running businesses and doing things around my kids for the past 10 years. But for the majority of the past, well, my oldest is 11. So like for the majority of the past 11 years, I have been a stay-at-home mom. My husband works 6 days a week, typically 12 hours a day. He works really hard, and I'm so grateful, but it has been very challenging, especially when they were babies. I mean, when they were babies, it was like, oh my gosh, I have these 3 little people. I mean, my oldest are 18 months apart. And then the youngest is just like a couple years after that. We were in this crazy, chaotic situation. Looking back, I love every second of it because we had such incredible time together, but it also was incredibly hard, very, very hard. But I never really felt like I could say it, because if I even tried to, the response I would get from people would be like, but you're so lucky. You should just be so grateful that you're home with your kids, or you chose this. Like, this is, you chose to stay home and not be at work. And it's like, man, that's so not
you're
fair.
smarter. I shouldn't have said anything.
Right.
You're like, I can't say this. I tried to talk to everybody and try to find validation. Nobody was giving it.
Well, although I will say that, like, I don't know what's worse, because then it felt incredibly lonely, and it just felt like I'm not allowed to say that this is hard. I mean, even in circles with other moms sometimes, like, and I'm just a very real talker. You know, I like to be in, oh, thank you. I love you. I love you too. I like to be in conversation and friendship with people where we can like be brutally honest about the tough stuff and find humor in it. That's usually I'm trying to find humor in it, you know, like.
Same, exactly.
So, you know, I could make a comment about my kids that's like, you know, maybe not like the best mother on the planet would say that, but I'm being comical about it and real. And like, I must say, it's what I'm really appreciating about Kylie Kelsey's podcast, because she's keeping it real 100%. And her kids are littler, and she's kind of in that phase I was in. And she's shooting it straight, and I love it, because I'm like, I would try to say that sometimes, and other moms would be like, oh gosh, you know, kind of like taken back. Like, I can't believe you'd say something like that. It's like, well, A, I was kidding. I was kidding. But also like, I needed that. And I needed people
Yeah.
around me that I could vent to, that understood like, yes, you are in a very crazy time of life. And I was in an extra crazy situation. My husband worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a
Mhm.
day.
Yeah.
Like I was flying solo most days, baths and dinner and
Mm.
diapers, and keeping them entertained for that many hours.
Yeah.
Like
It's
it was
brutal.
really intense. But
Mhm.
that's what I thought of as you were telling the postpartum story. It's just that like I did then have to kind of say to myself, like nobody else see actually what I would tell myself is God sees it. God is watching. Like
Good
somebody
for
is
you.
my
Yeah.
angels, somebody's watching this
Yes.
from above. I'm not making this up. This is hard. And it's
Yeah.
okay for me to think it's hard. It's okay for me to say that it's hard. But I did have to kind of scoop in and pull myself up every now and then. And I'm glad for that. I think that is something where I learned, that was a space in my life where I really learned how to dig into that. Nobody's coming to save me. Um, there's only a few people I can safely talk about this with and
Mhm.
who will validate what I'm feeling. And I have to find a way to validate it for myself. And that really was a good thing in the end. But I hope that us talking about this gives people who are listening that permission and that understanding. Like, I'm sure if it's not the two examples we just gave you, you can think of something or someone or some instance in your life where you've been feeling like something's hard and you feel like it's just nobody's willing to tell you, yes, I see you, I hear you, that's hard.
Mhm.
And we're here to tell you that, well, we're here for you, number one, but we're
Always.
encouraging you to see this a little differently and ask yourself, how can I start showing up for myself? How can I start loving myself through these hard moments and shift that knee-jerk reaction to want to spew it out to everybody, get validation from everybody, get the response that you're thinking will make you feel better, and find a way to give it to yourself.
Mhm. Oh, so good, Chris. I could listen to you all day long.
Oh, this is quite honestly, I think we love it so much because it's total therapy.
It is. It's so good
Just
for us. We
just
always
talking
did
about,
this. We did this behind
I'm
closed
like, woo,
doors.
I feel great now. Let's keep going.
So true. It's so true. But I think exactly what you're saying, the biggest thing I heard you mention is like, we just want to feel witnessed. Like
Mhm.
we want, like you said, God's watching, or my angels are like somebody's seeing the chaos that I have to live in every single day. Like I would joke about like there must be cameras hiding. Like this isn't real
I'm
life.
getting
Like
punked.
yeah, I must be getting punked right now. Like bouncing this kid in a dark room with the sound machine for 2 hours and he's still not sleeping. And I tried nursing him 3 times. All right. Like, like somebody's watching hysterically laughing on the other side, being like, this girl she's gonna lose it. But I do think, and like we said, it is trying to make light of hard stuff. And I think that is such a gift because there's not a pet peeve of mine more than when people take themselves too seriously. It's like
Mhm.
we all have to lighten up and hold our own experiences important. So like make sense of that, like that's a tough one to kind of wrap your head around is like not taking things too seriously and honoring the hard stuff that you're going through, but also don't get stuck there because that's what we talk about with like moving through, having like this growth mindset, knowing that things that you're experiencing. I love the idea of this practice of like, what do I wish they said? Or
Mhm.
what do I wish, my mom taught me? Or what do I wish that this one, and you do it. Like I was
Mhm.
just talking to a client about this week because we were talking about something around body image and we were saying how like what do you wish that you heard growing up, or what do you wish that you, because it pulls on the thread of like the worthiness and the value, because when you're feeling invalidated it's almost like I'm not enough.
Mhm.
Like around the postpartum example, it's like, well, what about me can't get this baby to sleep? Like I must be doing something wrong. Or why is this so hard for me? It looks like all these other moms are doing it just fine. Like, what is going on with me? And you get down on yourself. Like you said, it's instead of going into that mode, because that can get really dark and lonely. And it's not true. It's just a story we're telling ourselves. So being aware of that story, being so curious, like who is giving me this story? Because it's not the truth. It's just something that's playing out. Like maybe it's culture, maybe it's family of origin, maybe it's partners, whoever. And then say the truth. The truth is, Krista, you've been up for 3 years straight. You're exhausted. Like you shouldn't have to do all of this alone. This is a glitch in the system. Like we were supposed to be around lots of people raising kids and being away from a partner, being in your house for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week with 3 young kids. Like that's actually ludicrous. Other cultures would laugh at us that we do it this way. So it's not us. It's the way in which the system is set up. And we have to be acknowledging that and validating like, yeah, this is all wrong. And you're okay to feel completely stressed out. And where do you feel it in your body, in my heart, or in my head, or in my stomach? Like it feels tight. It feels like naming the sensations, getting really clear about what it is in your body that's feeling this way, and then offering loving breath to it, just to expand and just to give some love. Going with the baby analogy, it's like there are parts of us that are screaming, crying because we haven't witnessed them or we haven't loved them. And we just go into that nursery or into that body of ours and say, I got you. I'm going to hold you. And then all of a sudden it dissipates. Like that crying stops because somebody loves us and is there to try and meet our needs. So the next question is like, what need is needing to be met? So that's why I love this question around like, well, what do I wish they said? Because something's missing. Like everybody I thought I could trust or talk to about this and thought it was a safe space is not getting it. Like they're just not really supporting me the way I need to or saying the right things. So it's like, I need them to say X, Y, and Z. And I always like putting my hands on my heart because it's like this little act of self-love where you're like, I'm pulling my power back. I'm making sure I'm giving myself what I need. And I'm asking for what I need in a really kind way when my partner comes home from 6 days of work, like, hey, mommy's got to go food shopping by herself, or I got to go get a massage. Like I'll be back in an hour, but like I need to get some needs met. So it's like all of these little things that we can do on our own. For me, it's like I got to go see the ocean every once in a while just to get perspective shifts. And I'm very lucky that I live here and can do that.
I
But
was gonna say,
life,
I have to look at a picture of the
I'll
ocean.
send it to you. Yes, it's my accountability. But yeah, it's like these little things. It doesn't have to cost any money. It could be a walk outside, or it could be like watch. I love watching stand-up comedy. Like just laughing kind of lifts and shifts the mood. So it's just, these little things like, what do I need? What does this part of me really desire right now? Because something's not being met. And that's where that like yearning or that longing is stemming from. So if we can get really clear on that, and that's the work, is like being quiet and asking, like going through this Rolodex of options. Like, do you need a hot shower? Do you need a hug? Do you need a good cry? Do you need a walk? Do you need a workout? Like whatever it is, answer it, go do it. And that's where courage comes in, because when you can do that, when you can cope with your emotions with kindness and answer what those needs are, that's when you develop self-trust. You're meeting the needs. This is what moms and parents and babies do. Like when the baby's crying, you try to understand the need and you meet it, and that cultivates safety and trust. So we, like you said, Chris, we weren't taught any of this. So we have to develop this relationship with self little by little, one need after another need getting met, and not overriding it. Like, oh no, you just had a mani-pedi, or you just had a talk with a friend. Like you don't need anything else. No, there's something else there that's being asked for. So try and listen to it and answer it.
Yes, 100%. And it's the theme of this, I feel like is self-compassion and reframing the way that we're talking to ourselves and the questions that we're asking ourselves, and not tuning out the important stuff or numbing out the important stuff. Because I also, as I'm hearing you say all of that, and even just hearing this conversation unfold, I am struck with like gratitude that we are in the place that we're in right now in life, that we are like people of our generation are learning these things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think of like our moms, they did not, no one ever said, think about what you need. What do you
No, that
need?
was
No,
awful. Don't
no
ever
one
do that.
ever said that, and it was always like this selfless, put everyone before yourself. And I think that we've learned that that was incredibly unhealthy, and it led to all sorts of burnout and issues for women across the board, because they just completely always felt invalidated, or
Mm-hmm.
always felt like their emotions were just didn't matter,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or taught to just like tough it out. And that whole concept kind of bothers me too, of like, there is so much strength in vulnerability and sensitivity. And I'd argue the most strength lies in being the ability to have the courage to be vulnerable and
Yeah,
sensitive.
I got chills. Yes. Yes, yes,
And
yes.
that, again, that's another shift that's happened for me, is that I stopped letting the world around me tell me that my sensitivity was a bad thing. And I realized, look at all that I've gone through, that I held my own hand through, right? And the strength that I cultivated along the way, because I was willing to be vulnerable enough with myself. I was
Mm-hmm.
willing to let that sensitivity be there, at least within myself. And as you said earlier, like, even if it's only you, I can't tell you how many times I've thought that to myself. Even if I'm the only person on this planet that gets me, understands me, has my back, thank God I have me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, thank
Mm-hmm.
God I have myself. And
Mm-hmm.
on, the topic of self-compassion and the way that we're talking to ourselves, Chris, you and I were talking about this a little bit before we hopped on, just of also the way that we're talking to like our kids. I think that that's a big part of what's shifted over the years too, is like realizing the weight of our words to our kids. And I am by no means really good at this. I am actively working on it on a regular basis. And I tell my kids every day that I'm working on it, because I haven't mastered it by any means. And it's also because this wasn't a conversation for many, many, many generations before us. We're just starting to figure this out. But
Mm-hmm.
I was telling Christa about an example of a story that I read in one of Brene Brown's books. And she said her daughter's teacher, her daughter was like in kindergarten or first grade. And her daughter's teacher one day said to her, I finally understand what you do, Brene. And now Brene is a researcher of shame and vulnerability, and all these kind of topics are very aligned with Brene's work. And she said, oh, what do you mean? And she said, your daughter was, in the corner working on with a bunch of glitter and messy stuff. And I said to her, like, oh, sweetie, you're such a mess. And she said, I'm not a mess. I'm just making a mess. And like this little girl, like,
Oh, so
but
good.
that was the direct result of Brene instilling in her like the difference
Mm-hmm.
between, the things that we say to ourselves, or the way that we let people say things to us and how it sticks to us. Like, no, you're not a mess. You're making a mess.
Mm-hmm.
You're not messy. It's just like the situation's messy.
Yes.
Um, and I loved that so much, because yes, it's powerful to think about talking to our kids like that, but I actually took it more so as, I need to talk to myself like that. I need
It
to
starts there. Yeah.
be better about the way that we are so quick to just say those kind of things to ourselves, and we don't realize the negative weight that it carries. And if you could just reframe it and like step outside of it for a second and see, like, why do I keep calling myself names,
Mm-hmm.
You'd
Yeah.
say to yourself, like, oh, I'm such a mess, or oh, I'm such a bad mom, or I can't get it together, I can't do this, that. What if you just said it differently? Like, I'm not a bad mom. I'm having a hard day. I'm
Yeah.
not a mess. I'm just acting in a messy way.
Yeah.
Like, those are so powerful. And I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that, because I think that it's easy to lose sight of the power that we have to reframe our thoughts, but also reframe the way that we say things, and the weight that it
Mm-hmm.
carries for us, and the weight that it carries for the people around us, and especially our kids.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you brought that up, because that's one of my favorite lessons from Brene, is like the difference between shame and guilt. So the shame is you are bad, and the guilt is you did something bad. And that is such a important distinction, especially within ourselves, like you said, and raising kids, because it's like in that moment of like chaos or something happened, it's really easy to go off of what you've been taught and like just automatically respond in like a rote way where it's like, what the heck? Like, you're so bad. Like, well, why would you do this? And that shift, like we talked about this too, where you have like this shift in perspective. It's like what I consider a miracle where you have that moment of saying, I have to do this differently. Like, let me take a deep breath. Let me think about how I want to respond right now. And just that little gap can create the generational healing that you're talking about of saying, instead of I am bad, it's that I'm doing something bad. And that's enough. Like that will create a ripple in the generations. And
Totally.
another piece of research that I think is very empowering is when the John and Julie Gottman is somebody John Paul and I studied with up in Seattle, and they're marriage and family therapists. And they talk about emotion coaching with kids. And they said 4 out of 10 times, if you're doing it the right way, that's a win. Like research shows that's going to help with shifting the generational trauma. And that's great. I like those odds. Like
That's a relief.
yeah, right. So I was like, oh, thank God.
That's such
Like,
a relief.
so if
I
I can
actually,
hit the mark
I want
3
to
to 4
share
times.
a story with you because just sorry,
Yeah.
before I forget it, because it's on in this vein
Mm-hmm.
of, yeah, we can get so caught up in like, I know better. Why am I not doing better all the time? Right. So I love those odds are much better. I can do 4 out of 10. 10 out of 10 is not happening.
Uh-huh.
But I had this moment today, and well, it was last night. It was silly. My son came home from practice and was hangry. His words, not mine. And we didn't really have what he was looking for in the kitchen, right? Because I was going grocery shopping today. But we had food to eat. Like there was plenty of options. It's just not what he wanted. And he was kind of just having like this major meltdown, for lack of a better word. And my response to him was coming from a place of, it is the end of the night. I was just in the car for 2 hours driving people
Mm-hmm.
all these different places.
Mm-hmm.
I buy groceries every week and we run out of it so quickly because you guys just don't stop eating. And so I was already from this like defensive place. So I guess I was talking to him in such a way that then kind of made him even more angry and upset. And bless his heart, in the midst of it, he said, it's just the tone, the way you're talking to me. It's the tone that I just don't know why you talk to me like this. And I was like, oh, I mean, talk about a gut punch though, because I
Yeah.
immediately felt shame. I mean,
Yeah.
immediately felt awful. But I think part of this is having the guts, the bravery, especially in a role as a parent or in any relationship in your life, to be brave enough to say, I was wrong. Like, he's right. He was so right. But I could have come back at him and been like, no, you're wrong. And you need to understand why you're wrong. And this is I
Mm-hmm.
did do a little bit of that, if I'm being honest. But it hit me and I really slowed down. And this morning I woke up and I said to him, I want you to know how proud I am of you that you said that. That you said those words. Like, it is your tone. That's, I said, I would want you to say that to anybody in your life who's ever speaking to you in a way that's not fair, like, or
Mm-hmm.
is just not, warranted, or you don't like the way they're talking to you. I'm so proud of you for saying that. And so my takeaway from that, as you were saying it, is like, that's what the generational healing kind of looks like, right? That was messy. I didn't do it well. I really didn't. But if I can give myself the grace and real, what I can extract from that situation is I heard him in the moment when he said that. And I felt shame. I felt it was very vulnerable for me the next morning to apologize and say, I'm proud of you. But I hope that that carries on with him throughout his life, that like in those moments, I I heard him and I tried my best to change, you
Mm.
know. But that's
Thank you
like,
so much.
I know that was that was like a story I just threw out there. But because I think it really does relate to this. The generational healing is something that is not easy, because I think we're one of the first generations to do it.
Yeah. Yes.
If not the first generation to do it. And so giving yourself the, like, instead of seeing, and I still feel like, as I'm telling you this story, I feel awful. I do feel all sorts of shame for just not being emotionally what he needed in that moment, because I was already so tired. But that also talks to this conversation of self-love and filling up your cup and all those things that we talk about. Like, you have to constantly keep pouring into yourself so that when you're in those moments, you're not reacting from a place of feeling so depleted that you're triggered and you're annoyed and you're just,
Hmm.
taking it out on the other person.
Exactly.
But it's hard work. But now I can look at that situation more so and say, like, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of, hopefully, who my kids will grow in to be as adults, and that I will have given them these little nuggets of wisdom along the way. And that's really what it's about. It's about doing that for ourselves, but also doing our best to model it for other people in our lives.
100%. Chris, I'm so glad you said that, because one of the things, this is another nod to the Gottmans, they talk about ruptures inevitable. Like, things like that are going to happen. Like you said, you had a million reasons to like be reactive. You were in the car for 2 hours, probably all hungry. Like, it's getting late. Nobody has enough bandwidth at the end of the day to be the best parent. That's why I love the research that says, like, it doesn't have to be 100% of the time. 40% works. But what you did by going into the room in the morning, oh my God, can I just bow to you? Because that took so much courage. You had to swallow the ego to be, instead of being like, no, don't talk to your mom that way. And all that is true too. But the fact that you've already instilled in your kids that they can speak up and say, that's not appropriate to speak to me that way, or like the tone you're using is hurtful or whatever, like that's an open line of communication that you've cultivated over all these years. And that you say, I'm sorry, I messed up. And I really appreciate that you did that. Like, that's huge, because that's teaching them conflict resolution, which I never learned growing up. Like, it was always just conflict. So modeling resolution is a really important skill so that we can learn and our kids can learn. Yeah, there's no avoiding conflict. We're all different humans. Like, it makes sense that we're not going to see eye to eye for a lot of things, but having the openness and having the kindness and the presence to go back and say, I wish I did that a little differently. Like, I really appreciate you saying something, because it made me think about what I did. Like, imagine if the world did that. So thank you on behalf of everybody for creating a little ripple of world peace in your home and what you're doing with your kids, because it's very inspiring.
Thank you for seeing me, hearing me, and validating me.
You got it, girl.
Oh my gosh. And I should say, like, a caveat to that is, then this morning, after my kind little talk, multiple things were happening that were bothering me. And I am saying, like, through gritted teeth, like, I'm trying to watch my tone. Help me talk to you better.
Yes.
Don't push my buttons.
I
But
also struggle with tone. John Paul always says, he's like, you know what the leading cause of divorce is? And I was like, what? And he's like, tone. Oh my God. So it's true. Yes.
Oh my God, that's so funny. That's
Mhm.
so funny. We all could learn to be better about our tone.
Exactly. Exactly.
But that's just, I think this is, again, it's like the hard stuff with the laughter. Like,
Hmm.
you got to be, and I also want my kids to see that. I want, him to see me joking about it a couple minutes later, like, okay, now you're driving me nuts again. And I'm
Yes.
trying my best to give you what you're asking for. I'm trying to work on my tone. So could you meet me halfway?
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
he looks at me and laughs, and like,
Yeah.
he
So
knows,
good.
like, okay, yes. So it's like that. But whether you have kids or not too, like, this isn't really just a conversation about like relationships with your children. It's relationships with everybody in your life, and being brave and willing to be vulnerable, being brave and willing to say you're sorry,
Hmm.
and being what did you say earlier? Harmonizing with life. I loved that. That
Yeah.
is what it is. It's like, it is not always going to be, there's no, this isn't a path. The personal growth journey is not a path of getting to some destination where then all of a sudden everything is rainbows and butterflies.
Right.
The path
We
of
wish.
growth, we wish, but the truth is, doesn't happen for anybody that way. No matter, even if you reach every goal you've ever had, even if you've got billions of dollars in the bank, you're still not going to be without life being what it is. And so our job is learning how to harmonize with life as it comes, with the good, the bad, the up, the down. I loved
So
that you
true.
said that, harmonizing with life. That's
Yeah,
like,
because it's a spin-off of balance. Like there's never going to be equal parts of like, oh, I work out this much, I work this much, I'm a mom this much. Like it's never going to be equal. It's never going to be like you're not giving your all in multiple areas. So we have to find a way to dance with it all, harmonize with it all, because it's not going to be like 30% of my day is this, 30% of my day is this, 10% is this, like it really is a dance. And we have to learn internally first to wire ourselves to not feel so rigid of like, this is how the day needs to go, like align,
right?
talking about our sacred starts, align your soul and your mind, body, and spirit. And then greet the day with, what do you got for me? I'm here to help this all flow. I'm open. I always say, like, I'm open to more and more magic than I could ever imagine. Like, surprise me. Let's go. Let's do this. So that you're really an active participant in your life. You're here to create. You're here to give your gifts. You're here to be your full light. And whatever is going to give your radiance, you got to do it. It's selfish not to, because everyone wants your light. That's your
Cool.
gift.
Yes. Yes. I'm going to go with the poetry snaps here. That's so good. And I was something that came to mind to me too. A mantra that I like is, universe, show me how good it gets.
That's a good one.
And by how good it gets means, again, not like show me the best possible life I could ever live without any hardship or strife in the process. Because look at how we grow. This is exactly what this podcast is all about, the wisdom work and the gold that comes out of working through the hard stuff and not shying away from it and being willing to put the work in. So universe, show me how good that can be. All of it. All of it.
Yeah.
Ah, Chris, this was another great chat.
I love it.
And
It's
of
so
course,
fun.
I want to keep going, but we've got a time limit.
Yes.
So is there anything else that you want to make sure that we capture in this conversation?
I feel so grateful. I feel so full from these conversations, so deeply nourished. Like my spirit, this is, again, Christy and I love doing this. It's a real passion project for us because we've had these conversations for decades now. First Starbucks in Delco, and now it's like over virtually coast to coast and going all over the place. But I just really want to thank our community. I want to thank our listeners. I want to thank you, Christy, for you doing the hard work so that you've been like an inspiration to me in my journey because I've witnessed you. You've modeled a lot of the way for me. And I really just bow to your deep conviction and knowing. And that was like a really big pivotal thing for me in my growth. And for all the listeners that have reached out and like want to hear different things and want us to talk about other things or have questions and want support, like we love you so much and we believe in you. And we just really, I hope that you feel a huge hug every time we have one of these conversations, because what our mission is really to normalize the hard stuff in life, laugh a little bit, a lot,
A
and
lot.
then also just really encourage and inspire you to come home to yourself. Like you have it all within you. If any teacher or therapist or helper provider is telling you otherwise, run, because you have it all, but it doesn't mean that we don't need support when we need it. So please, please always reach out or seek therapy if you need to. But we thank you for listening. Thank you for helping us do what we love.
I can't even add a single thing to that because that was so well said. And, I'll say, Chris, that thank you and to everybody listening, thanks for listening. Cause that's, I do feel grateful, and I receive what you just said about, me being an inspiration to you, and you've been an inspiration to me in many ways too. But again, it can be a lonely place when you're someone doing the things first, and you're the one who's just like kind of listening to your heart and following your path, but nobody else gets it. This community has become such an incredible space for me to just feel like I can share all that I've learned and it be so well received. And to feel like, Chris, I think you would probably agree, like the things that we've gone through and the wisdom that we've acquired and the ways that we've learned how to harmonize with life, to be able to inspire other people to tap into that, knowing how good it will be for them, knowing how it will enhance their lives. Like that is pure gold to us. Like that is just an absolute gift to us to be able to hold this space. So at the heart of it, we can't thank you all enough for listening and just being here. And we are so pumped to be back. This is our second episode of like back on the Christa and Christy train. And I think we're just, we're more excited than ever to keep having these conversations. And we are talking about potentially bringing some guests on soon for you with certain specific topics to dive into. And we're really looking forward to bringing that to you all. Some other offerings of getting back to our retreats and bringing everybody together in a live situation. I think that that's something that the people who have been a part of those retreats have told us has just been incredibly valuable to be in real time with each other, right? And hold that space together. So we're definitely going to bring that to you soon also. So keep listening, keep reaching out. Thank you for being here. And we will see you next time on the Wisdom Work with Christa and Christy.